Hi, everyone. Thanks very much. Yeah, so I am going to talk about this book, The Conversation. It is huge, but also has a massive bibliography, so it's not as scary when you get a chance to look into it. It's by a guy called Robert Livingston, who is a lecturer at Harvard, but he's also lived in the UK. I wanted to mention also that he's a Black author, because it was the first thing I looked up when I saw it was a book about anti-racism, because that's a controversial topic at the moment. Next slide, Andy. So yeah, the book is specifically about corporations and organizations, I would say. So it's how to talk honestly about racism and about how it can transform individuals and organizations. And I wanted at this point to say that I'm a little bit nervous giving this talk as a white woman. I feel like I'm still very much finding my place on the kind of like anti-racism map. And I'm worried about making mistakes, and I'm worried about offending people and getting it wrong. But if I don't try, then I'm just the same as a whole load of other people that aren't speaking at the moment. So my plan is to keep trying, make mistakes, learn from them. And there's a really interesting Brené Brown quote where she says quite a lot on her podcast, which is, "I'm here to get it right, not to be right." And so that's my journey. I'm trying to get it right. The book, as I mentioned already, is absolutely huge. I couldn't possibly cover it. If I reread it now, I'd probably pick another 5 things. So what I've done is picked out things that I found particularly useful. And I snuck an extra slide in just here, the next one, which is Robert Livingston has developed what he calls the press model, which is breaking the conversation, as he calls it, down into 3 places, which is problem awareness, root cause analysis, and a condition. And do I understand what the problem is and where it comes from? Empathy, do I care enough about the problem and the people it harms? And then strategy and sacrifice, so correction. How do I know how to correct the problem, and am I willing to do it? And I found that really useful. And the book itself is broken into those 3 sections with like 3 different points for you to have like a conversation, either with yourself or with your workmates or with other people, which is what I did. So then, actually starting the first one, I would say this is very much about, is very much a book for white people to work with and on other white people. It's basically, we are the problem, so we should also be the solution. The author is really optimistic that we can get better, and we will continue to get better. It's full of so many evidence and stats, because he's a lecturer, it's so many references to different little things. But one of the things I took from it is there's strong evidence that white people take on conversations about race better from other white people, which is really sucky, I think, in my opinion. But it is actually a fact at the moment. And so until we reduce the bias that a lot of white people have, a lot of us all have, we can't get to that point. So it means that we can tangibly do something as white people. We can help in this. And this is one of the actions, is talking to other people. So that's the focus of it. And then the second thing I learned from it is reading is part of the doing. It gave me a lot of permission to keep reading and keep learning, going back to that press model of identifying the problem a little bit more. He comes back to a kind of like very popular Einstein kind of like parable, where he said if he had an hour to fix the world, he'd spend 55 minutes thinking about it and 5 minutes on the solution. And I think in a world where we're still very much stuck in our homes and it feels like we can't do much, it gave me permission to continue kind of building my confidence in a tangible way, to be able to take more action when I had an opportunity to do so. Very much caught at home myself when everything was happening last summer. I was feeling very uncomfortable about the fact that I was just sitting at home and it felt like I was doing nothing. So this kind of helped me to give permission to do a little bit more. The third point that he makes is that people fall into 3 broad categories, and therefore different tactics for anti-racism will work. So there's like the pro-self or the individualist, who is somebody who primarily does think about themselves, but can be encouraged to think about others. There's the pro-social person who does think about others and the kind of wider environment. And then there's the competitors who basically want to win at all costs. And so there are 3 different techniques and tactics for kind of encouraging, which is basically, there isn't one size fits all for stopping people from being racist. He talks about like a carrot and a stick analogy, and then also like a better angel or sort of moral compasses for people. That's a really interesting section. And then the fourth point is that empathy is important, but the focus actually should be on conscious and deliberate commitment to help others. This was really, really useful for me reading it. It was a bit of a light bulb moment when I was reading it, because I sometimes fall into like this well of despair about how awful everything is, and how it'll hardly ever change, and how awful white people are, and you know, what have I done, what have our race done, and everything. And I think that would be really good for me the next time I kind of fall into this pit of despair, is to remember that my focus isn't on understanding or having empathy. It's about being better. It's about helping other people. And I think that that will help me kind of pull myself out a little bit, and redo my focus. And the last bit is about, very similar to sort of point number 3, is that you build your own anti-racist journey to create your habits. And I thought Mike Coulter would like this a little bit here, because it is about habit building. And so instead of like trying to do 100 different things and reading all of these articles and then doing none of them, or doing some of them really badly, you could pick out like 3 to 5 to start on, and then keep building on, and then build on others. And I really like that. At the end of the book, there's a whole load of different suggestions that you could do. And I made the decision that I would share mine as part of my journey, which is that I'm going to keep reading and learning. I'm going to surround myself with the reading, historical figures, the TV, the movies, learning from Black examples, because there's really strong evidence in the book that the more and more that we surround ourselves with the people who are like different to us, the less our bias will be. And so you can kind of reduce the level of bias that you might have. And the third one is I'm going to start speaking about it a little bit more and be a little bit more open, which is one of these examples of I'm doing it now. I also snuck in a final other point. Sorry, Andy. It's totally, totally snuck in the next. I think this book is absolutely brilliant. I really loved reading it. I thought it was so matter of fact. I love the bibliography. I was looking at the back of stuff. I was looking at articles all the time. It was the first time I kind of started writing notes about a book in a long time without knowing why I was writing notes. I genuinely think it's a little bit too kind to white people. I think the reason why the author made that decision is because he wants to address a corporate and a kind of company-like audience. And I think kind of like going full on in with all of the horrors that we have perpetrated across the centuries is probably not the most helpful way to do it for his thing. So I would add another couple of books into this to learn a little bit more about the harm that white people have done. I would add Layla Saad, Me and White Supremacy, and I would add Isabel Wilkerson, which is a book called Cast. Those 2 ones in to carry on learning a little bit more. But I do think this is a brilliant starting point, especially if you're feeling like a little bit fragile about learning, because I think it's really matter of fact and very simple and really clearly written out. So finally, it's helpful for white people to teach about other white people. I think reading is very much part of the doing. People are different, so different anti-racism tactics work. Focusing on helping others is more important than developing your empathy, and you can create your own anti-racism plan. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Sal. That was awesome. Yeah, as I said, please, yeah, just put some questions for Sal in there if you'd like to explore those issues a little bit deeper, but hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end to discuss that. We'll just move on quickly to our final speaker of the day. So yeah, last up we have Bonnie Ling Leclerc, and as I said, Bonnie has spoken here before, so it's great to have her back. I think last time she shared her thoughts on Trick Mirror in September last year, so yeah, I recommend checking that out too. Bonnie's a designer, journalist, content strategist, a BBC Scotland Illumina, mother musician, snake owner, multi-cat owner, like I'd say a modern day Renaissance woman. And she is about to share her 5 takeaways from Feminist City. Bonnie.
5 things